This is a more detailed view of how to inject the under eye area with Sunekos to get results like this. I've had a few requests to do this, so here we are. Notice some really important things right from the very beginning. The needle that I've got on the left here is called an invisible needle from TSK, and it's one of the thinnest you can buy, which makes it much easier to get the right injection depth, which is as shallow as possible. And then next on the right, I'm using a 30 gauge needle, which is wider, but I'm showing it in order to get you to see that you can't blame the equipment if a 30 gauge is all you have, because even with a larger 30 gauge, I'm still getting the right technique, which is what I'm now going to describe. The needle itself needs to be literally as flat as you can get it. The metal shaft of the needle needs to basically rest on the skin as it slides forward. If you introduce any angle and you're not experienced enough, you're probably going to go too deep. And depth is absolutely everything here. You're wasting everyone's time if you get the wrong depth. Once I'm comfortable with my needle angle being at 0 degrees, I want to then use my non-injecting hand to stretch the skin in as many directions as possible to make entry easier and not drag the skin instead of the needle penetrating it. It's difficult in this video and I'm not doing it perfectly, I'll admit, because if I stretch like I normally would, the camera wouldn't be able to show you anything. I've also got a load of microphones and lights, etc., all in the way that I'm trying to simultaneously avoid and not trip over. And also I don't have a cameraman to help me with things like this, unfortunately. I'm a one-man band. But look at how slow I'm entering and delivering the product too. The quicker I go, the more risk I'm taking of doing it wrong. With such a tiny needle in use, there's only a certain amount of pressure I can apply to before the needle bursts off the syringe, hence slow injecting. Notice also that there's no bleeding here, right? This is really important. I've had so many people tell me that Sunekos causes black eyes. No, it doesn't. Just think about it for a second. You're the one causing black eyes because your technique needs to improve. I've never given anyone a black eye or any other kind of bruising with Sunekos because my technique is what you can see here, minus the camera equipment getting in the way, obviously. Now, please do bear in mind that where I'm injecting in the inner half or the medial half to the professionals, as opposed to the outer half or lateral half, that's not the official technique, because for inexperienced users who go too deep, if you go too deep in the inner half or medial half of the under eye area, you could hit an important nerve there called the infraorbital nerve. So the official technique is to only treat the outer half or the lateral half. But as you can see from how clear and obvious the blebs of liquid are, I'm nowhere near that depth of the nerve. And pay attention to the quality of these round bumps I'm creating. They're so shallow that they have a distinct sharp border on their edge, and they just sit there supporting themselves. Some of them even look lighter than the skin because they're so shallow. If your bumps aren't this obvious, then again, you've gone too deep. It's not easy to get this shallow, and it takes time to learn and to get this consistent all the time. Now for me, around say 1 in 50 patients get swelling where the fluid is, and that can last say for up to a week potentially. This is generally only in exceptions where the patient has some particular medical history or they naturally have festoons which the fluid collects into like a bag. Other than that though, the other 98% of patients seem to go back to normal in about an hour on average. This is a picture of this particular patient about 1 hour after I treated him, and as you can see, he's exactly as he was before we started. This is completely normal and what I'd expect to see in the vast majority of patients. I used in total about 0.6 ml per eye here, per under eye. But sometimes I might go ahead and use up to a full 1 ml depending on the case. If you've got any questions, please just comment down below.